Growth. Why growth is a good thing, why you should think about it, why you should chase it. And by growth, I mean growth in the business that you run now. There's maybe a couple of people thinking I'm big enough already and I need to consolidate and get smaller, maybe. There is such, I'm not talking about growth for growth's sake. I'm talking about getting to a size which is more sustainable, more capable of allowing you to realize your potentials, right? Finding the right size. What I guess I'm saying to you is almost certainly the right size of your business is a size larger than it is now, okay? As a presumption, I'm just going to start with the idea that probably your business, as it is now, is not too big, but too small. There may be one or two people in the room for whom that's not true, but for everyone else, I would suggest it is true. And let me give you some reasons why growth is a good thing. And most of these are Business 101 things. I actually also ran a workshop in New Zealand with a fabulous group of New Zealand filmmakers, and we found about half a dozen reasons that weren't even in the business textbooks. So I'm going to give you them all quickly. Number one is what economists call economies of scale and scope. This is just, Business 101, why get bigger? Well, because carrying out your basic core activities will get cheaper, more efficient as you get bigger. Up to a point. There is a point where the arrow turns the other way, but you're nowhere near it, so don't worry about it. So anytime you do more of something, the cost of doing it gets less. So you become more efficient. Let me just preface this too by saying that it can feel in a small business like you're a long, long way from where you need to be in terms of profitability. But if you did an analysis, you would probably discover that you're not as far away from it as you think, right? It's not like it's an order of magnitude difference that's required to get you to profitability. It's probably a marginal change. I don't know the comparable numbers for Canada, but I know that in Australia, the average production house has a profitability of about 8%. This is Bureau of Statistics figures, right? 8% is not good, but it would be good if it was 12%. It'd be fabulous if it was 15. If it was 15, it'd be financeable, right? You could attract capital. So we're not talking about orders of magnitude. We're talking about moving things at the margin. So going back to my point about scale economies, if you can become a little bit more efficient at doing something, you are nudging towards profitability with every little improvement you can make. Economies of scope are where you're able to do things that you couldn't do when you were smaller, right? Which some people have already referenced this morning. Second big thing about getting a little bit bigger, a bigger head count, is you enable specialization, right? If it's just you, then you're, the chief cook and bottle washer, you're doing it all, and you're probably good at some stuff and maybe not so good at other stuff, and maybe completely crap at some other bits that you probably then therefore don't do because you're no good at them. As you add head count, you enable more specialization, therefore you get better as a business at doing these tasks that need to be done, right? So again, what's the head count you need to be good at everything you need to be good at? That's a question, one way to think about what size should I be. Bargaining power. A person alone with a crappy cash flow is in a terrible bargaining position. Right? All of you will have experienced this. How can you be in a better bargaining position? Well, one of the ways is to just be a bit bigger and to not need any particular deal as much as you do today. Right? Just so that you can say no. It's an incredible difference. And again, it's a marginal difference. It's not about getting massively bigger. It's just about getting big enough that no one of these things can sink you, so that you can always say, no, we're not doing it. Or just, if not a no, take a much tougher line in a negotiation. And again, remember, we're looking for the margin. We're looking for the marginal improvement in terms, because that cumulatively will create profitability. Getting bigger also allows smoothing. This is seasickness, right? Does your business feel like it's, as you get bigger, as this gets stronger, the line comes up here, and you smooth out the revenues and you smooth out risk by being that bit bigger. Again, none of these things matters quite so much to you as they did when you were smaller. So bigness creates smoothing. Smoothing is good. Smoothing is sleep. Smoothing is calmness. It's good. Resilience. It's really hard to keep a business going long run when it's just you or maybe a couple of people. It's just hard. The emotional reserves that get sucked into it, you draw down on all those aunts' inheritances that you've got coming your way, everything gets used up, and then what? And then what, right? So getting a little bit bigger just creates more resilience. It means there's people in the room. It means you're sharing the load. You're sharing the emotional load as well as the workload, yeah? Visibility. Now we're into the Kiwi things. You get noticed when you're a bit bigger. It's really easy to get ignored when you're tiny, right? So just have a little bit more presence in the room. More opportunities, therefore, flow towards you because you're that bit more visible. Information. More people, more eyes and ears. You hear about more stuff, you see more stuff, you notice things. There's more time to notice things. There's diversity in the room, so there's things that you wouldn't notice, somebody else notices, right? Diversity is really important in the strength of a business. Trust. People place more trust in larger entities. Should they? I don't know, but they do. It's a human thing. We trust larger things. Don't trust smaller things because they have a habit of disappearing. Accountability. This is one I never would have thought of. This is my Kiwi filmmaker friends. Responsibility to others in the business creates a discipline all by itself. Never would have thought of that, but it's true, right? If there's other people in the business whose lives also depend and subsist in the business, you become accountable to them, and that creates a discipline, and that's a good thing. Bigger projects. Ambition is enabled as you get bigger. You can chew on bigger things that you couldn't have contemplated smaller. More ideas. There's more minds, more critical abrasion, creative abrasion of minds, more ideas, more things become obvious to you or apparent and visible to you. And finally, completion of the team. I think we heard this morning that there are some teams that are incomplete. There are skill sets that are not represented or strongly represented in the business. This is something that is a problem, right? And building a larger team enables you to complete the skill sets, complete the team. If a business is going to continue over time, there has to be, at some point, and multiple points actually through the life of the business, a handover to the next generation. And there has to be, for that to happen, a deal between the generations about what is going on in that business, right? So the partnership model is interesting because it's the older generation, in essence, saying to the younger generation, hey, tell you what, come work with us and we will give you this incredible platform to work on. We'll give you all the tools, we'll give you a salary, we'll give you access to our client list, we'll give you access to mentoring, we'll give you access to training. We'll do all of that for you. And all we require in return, Chip, is what? 100 hours a week of dedicated commitment? And on a slow week. On a slow week. So, but here's the thing, right? If you're alone as a professional of any kind, burning, doing your 100 hours a week in a slow week, where is all that effort going? Chances are a whole lot of it is being kind of captured by other parties, right? This will be the classic position of a film producer and the classic position, I would suggest, of an artist manager. that so much of the value of what they do is captured by others, right? It's whisked away from you. It's not stored somewhere and you get it back later. It's just taken because it can be taken, right? In a partnership model, what's happening between the generations is, in a sense, you're banking it. You may not get your money back. You may not get it back because you may not make partner in the future. But if you do make partner, in essence, what you've done is you've banked all that passion and drive and hard work, and the payback of it is you make partner down the track. You get elevated, right? So there's an intergenerational transfer that's occurring. I'm a young person, I put my passion and drive into this business. Maybe I get a payback in the form of admission to partner. What's the older generation getting? Well, they're getting the people who are going to buy out their shares. They're getting the people who are going to allow them to exit, who are going to return the value of the business to them, either by way of dividends or through a buyout. So you're creating the generation that's going to enable your business to continue and therefore give it continuing value and therefore pay you out. Does that make sense? Is that kind of connecting? So this is a really clever thing about how the generations work together. And I think it would be a fair thing to say that creative industries, by and large, are not good at this because we tend to be kind of lone wolf operations, a very lone wolf mentality. And we kind of think, oh, those people, so we don't address it. And therefore, what you're not doing is cultivating that next generation who will one day buy out your shares. Okay. Does that make sense? Some other creative enterprise models. I really like theatre companies. Theatre companies have got this amazing thing happening where they, instead of saying, hey, there has to be a boss who's the boss of everything, they say, oh, no, let there be two bosses, right? And one's the general manager and one's the artistic director. And instead of the general manager being in charge of the artistic director, they're here at the same level. They're here at the same level. They're co-equal. And really what's going on between them is like an arm wrestle, right? So how does it get resolved? Does the business beat the creativity? Well, it gets resolved case by case, not structurally. It's case by case resolution of that question through an arm wrestle. Sometimes it ends badly, right? Somebody ends up with a broken arm and leaves the business. But by and large, it's a model that's been incredibly successful at elevating the creative quick decision-making to the same level as the CEO level, the general manager level. It's making them equal. I think a lot of businesses are going to start thinking about this because as innovation becomes more important in business, how do you make sure it doesn't just get stifled? You have to keep elevating it, making it more and more important. This happens on a film shoot in the producer-director structure, right? In a film, the producer is nominally the entrepreneur and nominally the employer, but hey, in reality, they are co-equal, right? And on a set, it's the director who's in charge. So it's that thing of saying, no, it's an arm wrestle. It's not structurally resolved. Okay, may or may not be appropriate. I'm just trying to show that there's a lot of flexibility, a lot of creativity is possible in how you structure a business, right? Let me just mention two more. Network structures. These are evolving. This is 21st century. So this is where instead of everything happening, let me use this one. Instead of everything happening inside the firm, some things happen inside the firm and some things happen outside. So it's a network. It's a spider web. This is, a lot of businesses being organised now like this. This is a much more common structure and shape of a business. Some of you, I think, were actually describing network structures this morning. And they can be good. There's a whole lot of economic theory about what should be in and what should be out of a firm, which I don't really have time to get into. But if you were interested, I can always steer you to something on that. And there's one more I should mention, and I just mentioned this one because I don't want to denigrate the lone wolf. I don't want to completely denigrate the lone wolf. I don't want to say you have to grow. Growth is a choice. The lone wolf structure has been historically an amazingly successful structure in my industry and in yours. So it's not that it doesn't work, but I think it has a particular value and a particular use. And I'm talking about the person who essentially operates alone, right? And I call this structure mad pursuit, right? Which is a reference to Francis Crick and who was one of the co-discoverers of the double helix. And he wrote an autobiography called What Mad Pursuit. And the thing about this is, if you are in a mad pursuit, a film, a talent, a project, something, if there's something you are crazy for and you want it to make it happen and it seems like an impossible thing to pull off, well, then the lone wolf structure is perfect, right? Because it's couch surfing, it's doing everything on the fly, it's calling in all the debts, it's just movement, never stopping moving. It makes perfect sense for something that is impossibly, stupidly difficult, right? And lots of times I think it's probably the only way to get those impossible, stupid, crazy things done. And those impossible, stupid, crazy things matter in our business, right? And we do have to pay respect to the mavericks who pursue the mad pursuit. But understand what it is. I think it's fit for a purpose. It's not fit for the purpose of sustainability. It's fit for the purpose of getting something mad, crazy done. So if you're in a mad pursuit mode, understand that it's comes to an end. It comes to an end. It doesn't sustain. Data is a new thing in our business, right? Suddenly it's possible in our world to swim in data. But for a long time, it was really, really hard to get any data or to get good data, right? So we, as a consequence, as industries, developed an over-reliance on the hunch, right? The gut, is this amazing instrument of decision-making in the creative industries. And look, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful thing. It's a great thing. And to be honest, I think a lot of gut instinct is actually driven by a lot of data, just assimilated and kind of massaged internally to a view, right? But now we have more data. And I think we need to start moving away from undue reliance on the hunch, on the gut, and start being a little bit more strategic about decisions, right? And that means accessing more data, using more data, and most importantly, actually, data is not just something floating out in the ether, it's embodied in people mostly, right? So consulting, involving, listening to more people before you make critical decisions, particularly about what to back, what to go after big time. The movie business has evolved what I think is probably, this is like the gold standard of critical decision-making under extreme uncertainty, and it's called the green light process. And the way it works is start with an idea. Somebody has an idea. They have to go sign a writer to write up the idea. It's hard to sign a writer. They've got lots of other competing things they could be doing, but you go find a writer. After you've got a writer, you've got to go find a producer. Somebody who's prepared to say, yep, I'm the person who's going to try and make this thing stand up. They've got to sign on. After there's a producer, there has to be a director. The director has to be, I'm going to join up to this thing and I'm going to make this thing whatever it's going to be, an Oscar winner or something that's going to make a lot of money. The director will then go and try to find at least one actor. Right? To get to the actor, you probably have to go to an agent. The agent says, I don't know if I want to give you access to my client. What's on the table? They've got a whole bunch of considerations. After the agent says, yes, you can talk to my actor, the actor's got a whole different set of considerations, right? Which might be to do with the fact that they have never got respect in their business and they really want to get that little gold statue, or it might be that they're really broke and they really need to make some money soon now. yesterday. But whatever it is, doesn't matter. The point is that each of these people, as you go along, is bringing to bear their own strategic perspective, and they're signing on cumulatively. And by the way, I've done the numbers on this. You cannot get a film up with less than 8. 8 is the minimum number of people that you need to cumulatively sign on to the project. And I've done some further work on this with an LA economist called Charles Plott, and we modelled this. And what we realised, or what I realised when I looked at all the data, was that what, in fact, the green light process constructs is what's called a wise crowd. A wise crowd. It's a distributed wise crowd. It's distributed in time. But we discovered in our research that as few as 8 people creates a wise crowd phenomenon. And a wise crowd phenomenon is this, right? The thing about a wise crowd is that it's wiser than the wisest person in it. Wiser than the wisest person in it. It's better than the wisest person in the crowd, right? It knows more. It's got better judgment. So a wise crowd is better than an expert. A wise crowd is better than a committee. Most of our decisions get made by an expert, your gut, or a committee, your friends, right? That don't get made by a distributed wise crowd of people who each independently have a perspective on what is at stake, right? But you only need as few as 8 to get to wisdom. Right? So this, I'm not saying you have to use this process, but what to take away from this is access to people who are stakeholders in some way, who have diverse perspectives, whose interests are not all the same, so that there's no groupthink happening, who have a different take on what is going on, a real take, something at stake. This will construct a wise crowd, and a wise crowd will consistently make better decisions than your gut, and will make better decisions than any committee of friends that you assemble. It will be better. So I'm just saying, find a method, find a way to make better decisions than just your gut. The new access to data that's been given to the music industry is astonishing, and I think will breed a whole new level of quality of decision making in the business, and that will pay off.